our friends and so on. Well, today our message is dedicated to moms. Okay, so I want to give you a light message, a very light message. Hopefully it's practical. 3 ways in how we can honor our moms. Okay, so let's take a look. First one is we want to honor her properly. We want to honor her properly. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a right thing to do. There's a right way to do things, and there's a wrong way to do things. Just like putting toilet papers, there's a proper way of putting it, and there's an improper way of putting it. Or just like even putting a helmet. Okay, there's a right way, a proper way, or there's a wrong way. And so, what is the proper way in which we can honor our moms or our spouse, our wives? Well, I want to take it from 1 Peter 3. Because in 1 Peter 3, the first 7 verses, Peter was telling husbands and wives how they had to relate to each other. But what's interesting here is that the first 6 verses, Peter was instructing the wives or the women, saying, hey, you need to submit to your husband. And you need to watch your behavior. Don't focus on your external beauty, but focus on your internal beauty. But then, Peter gives the husbands, the men, 1 verse in how they are to relate to their wives. And this is the verse. You husband, in the same way with your wives, in an understanding way, as with someone weaker, since she is a woman, and show her honor as a fellow heir of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. Okay, just 1 verse. 1 verse is enough. Why? Because this whole verse is packed with something very interesting. Now, in hermeneutics, that is the art of interpretation of the Bible, one of the first basic thing you need to do is, first of all, you need to know who the author is writing to and the context. And Peter, you have to remember, was writing to the men in a period where women used to be treated like a property. Okay? Remember in those days, women were often treated like just a property, like something to be sold or to be bought. Okay? And it's just a horrible thing, but that was the context. So this command is a very profound command for the men to learn. Peter is saying, hey, listen, guys, I know how our society treats women. We can sell them like cows or donkeys or pigs or whatever it is. Okay, we can do whatever we want to women. Okay, they're like second-class citizens. But Peter is telling them a new command, something very profound. Listen, men, he's his husband. In the same way, live with your wives in an understanding way as with someone weaker. Okay? But don't abuse your strength just because they're weaker. Don't abuse them, but instead live with them understandably, okay, and with honor. Because you have to understand something that I may not agree with the women liberation movement, but I understand why they're doing it. Even today, there are still societies where they are under a certain religious bondage where they treat women like second-class citizens. Okay, and that's why I understand why women want to fight back. Because men have, all throughout the centuries, have abused their power, their authority, in an ungodly way. But Peter here is telling the men, you need to understand your wives. And here's the key that I want you to focus here in this verse, in the one I circled there in red. The word understanding in Greek is gnosis, is where we get the word knowledge. Peter was telling the husbands that, listen, man, if you want to treat your wife properly, if you want to live with them and you want to treat them with honor, you must have an understanding of who they are. You must have knowledge, gnosis, knowledge. You have to be knowledgeable about your wife, about the women. Okay? And so, let me give you some illustration. If you and I want to become a doctor, for instance, we have to study biology. And we'll spend years in school studying human anatomy or, whatever, depending what your specialty is. And you spend years and years studying biology. If you want to be a lawyer, we'll spend years and years, studying the laws, studying books and volumes and reading different cases and, preparing yourself to be a lawyer. If you want to be an anthropologist, again, you study anthropology, right? You read books, you go to the field, you dig stuff, and you learn under a professor, whatever it is. And then same thing, if you want to be a pilot, you have to learn to fly. You have to learn about aviation. You have to learn about, aerodynamics and so on and so on. You begin to get the drift here. If you want to know something, you want to know a particular subject, you want to be good at it, you got to spend time, to invest time to study that subject. Whether it's anthropology, whether it's medicine, okay? You got to spend time to study about it. And that's what Peter is saying. If you want to know your wives, you got to know them, then you got to study them. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie before. It's The Gorilla in the Midst, where it's based on a true story about a woman. Her name is Diane Fossey. And this woman was born in San Francisco, and she just loved the animal kingdom. She just loved animals. She started studying to be a veterinarian, but she changed her field, and then eventually in the early 60s, she went to Africa. But by 1966, she just fell in love with gorillas. And she spent the rest of her life studying the behavior of gorillas until she was killed in 1985, probably by poachers or whatever. I never saw the movie, but I kind of know what it's about. And I read her biography, and listen to what it says here about her goals in studying these gorillas. It says here, Diane Fossey's objective were to study gorilla ecology, demography, and social organization. She found that in order to study gorilla ecology, she needed to recognize individual gorillas, which required that gorillas get used to her presence. By imitating gorilla behaviors and vocalization, Fossey began to gain their trust, and in 1970, an adult male gorilla she had named Peanuts reached out to touch her hand. So her goal was to study them. And this last sentence goes like this. Intense observations over thousands of hours enabled Diane Fossey to gain the gorilla's trust and bring forth in her studies new knowledge about their behavior. What am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that here's a woman who fell in love or passionate about gorillas. And she wants to know about the way they live, their social behavior, and how they interact with one another. And to do that, she invested her life. She went into the jungle. She lived with them. And according to her biography, she actually spent thousands and thousands of hours observing, studying, mimicking, trying to understand these gorillas. And eventually she lost her life for that love, for that passion, protecting these gorillas. So my point is this is what Peter is saying. If we as men, we have a passion, we love our spouse, our wives, moms, wives. Not that we have to become like Diane Fossey and study our wives like a gorilla, okay? But the point is we need to spend the time, to invest the time to get to know our wives, to know what is her likings or what she dislikes, her dreams and her fears, her goals. And so this is what Peter was trying to encourage us men. Live with your wives with knowledge, with understanding, and so that we will be able to honor them properly. That's one way we can honor our spouse or our moms or wives. It's for us to understand, to know. I was planning at first to do a little game here, but I figured it might take too much time. But just think for a moment, husbands. We played at games like dating games before. Ask yourself, what is your wife's favorite food? Would you know what that is? What is your wife's favorite verse in the Bible? If you can have a holiday anywhere, where would your wife would like to go? Do you know what scares your wife the most? Is it the way you drive, or is it, the way you snore, or what is it? What gives her the joy? What is her greatest fear? If we have those questions, will we be able to answer it and check it with our wives and see if it's the same or not? How much do we know our spouse? How much do we really study our wife? Let me give you just one practical example of how we can do this to get to know our wife. I alluded to this book many times before. One suggestion is, for husband and wife, just read this book together. Because this book was a bestseller for a while, and it tells us about the 5 languages of love. 1 is the words of affirmation. 2 is a quality time. 3 is receiving gifts 4 is acts of